SPSS allows researchers to create new variables based on the responses you already have. For example, you may add variables or recombine them in different ways. In this tutorial, we will look at a particular type of transformation, creating a new composite variable that is a combination of a set of responses. As you recall, our example questionnaire contains sets of questions that measure the same things. Such sets of questions are normally referred to as scales. For example, we have 4 statements that measure employee autonomy, and we recorded them as autonomy 1 and autonomy 4. What if we wanted to have just one indicator for each of the respondents to measure their autonomy across the 4 variables? We can compute a new total autonomy indicator, and let me show you 2 ways in which this can be done. The first way is to add the responses. To compute a variable, we will go to Transform, Compute Variable, and let's say that we would like to have a new variable called autonomy, and we'll call it autonomy all, and that this variable will be a sum of autonomy 1, so we will move autonomy 1, add autonomy 2, add autonomy 3, and add autonomy 4. Correct? So we are creating new variable, autonomy consisting of all the answers every respondent gave to those questions. Let's click OK. If you now scroll down to the bottom of your variable list, you have this new variable, autonomy all. Let's just have a look at how it looks like. I notice here that it's given it a nominal scale. It's not correct. We'll scale it. Okay, let's have a look at frequencies to see how it looks like. And I am going to plot myself a chart, a bar chart. Continue. Okay. So now we have 70 respondents, where respondents variedly agreed and disagreed with the statements that measure autonomy, and the responses vary from 4 because they 1 plus 1 plus 1, the lowest response that they could have given is 4, and they go up to 16, meaning that none of our respondents strongly agreed with all 4 statements. If we had a respondent that answered 5, 5, 5 and 5 to those questions, then we would have a response, the sum, that is equal 20. Now, adding is all good, but it's a little bit irregular or unhelpful to have a variable starting at 4. So what we typically do is, rather than add, simply add, we calculate a mean for a variable. So we use exactly the same menu. We go to Transform, Compute Variable. Instead of adding the responses, we're going to calculate arithmetic mean. And to do this, let's just name this new variable. So let's say that is autonomy, auto and mean. And the best way of calculating means is to go into this little menu here, which sets different functions. Let's click on statistical, and then a mean pops up. Can you see here? So click on that mean, or double click on it, and that function pops here in equation. This function tells you I am trying to calculate a mean what variables would you like to average, and where the question marks are, we need to introduce our variables. So we will add autonomy 1, comma, autonomy 2, comma, autonomy 3, comma, and autonomy 4. Why not just add them and divide by 4? Because of the missing values. When you use the mean function, the average gets calculated for only the valid responses. So if a respondent missed an answer to one of those questions, their mean will be calculated by dividing the sum by 3 and not by 4. So it's more accurate to use mean than try to average it by hand. Okay, so we have new variable that is a mean of the existing 4 variables. Let's click OK. Now let's have a look now how this new variable looks like. I'm gonna go to descriptive analysis and frequencies, remove that mean, and look at this new variable, which should be at the bottom, auto mean. Okay, and click on it. Let's start with the frequency table. This time our responses start at 1, so from people who have replied 1 to all 4 question statements, and they finish with a response with an average of 4, somebody who has replied 4 to all the questions. This doesn't change at all the graphic distribution of those frequencies, but what it means is that we have a variable that starts now from 1 and finishes at 4, just like the original variable that measured each of the autonomy item. So here is how you compute a new variable in SPSS.